All right, today we are in Proverbs chapter 1. Now, I'm not going to go back and review any of the things that we've said about Proverbs before. With the one exception, I want to point out one thing. And that is that we think of a proverb as being a very short sentence, and it is. In fact, the definition that we've given of a proverb is a long life and a short sentence. And so when you think of a proverb, you think of a pithy little saying that you can always remember. But we pointed out that there are various aspects of proverbs. One of them is really a parable. In the Bible, some of the parables are called proverbs in the Old Testament, and that would be a story. It would take a longer story. Now today, we're going to be doing that. Today, we're going to be looking at, how would I put it? We're going to be looking at a teaching, one teaching. Now, after we've gone through the verses, let's say from verse 8 down through verse 19. So as we look at that, I ought to be able to ask you, now in one sentence, tell me what we have said. Because you're going to be able to look at it and summarize it and say, okay, now in all these verses here, these 11 verses, you said one thing. Then, as we start in verse 20 and go on down through verse 33, the remaining part of that chapter, we can stop and say now, what have we studied? In one sentence. And you ought to be able to say just in one sentence, okay, here is what we have said. So these sections, we're going to be looking at these two sections here today, and we're going to be seeing two ideas, two thoughts, but there's going to be several verses that are in there, and they're going to be describing and repeating and so forth. Now, when we get over to chapter 10, Proverbs will change, and all of a sudden, they will become short, pithy verses. And so each verse will be a short verse, have a meaning. So I merely want to call that to your attention today as we start studying here. And you might think, well, this sounds funny here to call these things proverbs, but not so. Now, let's go right to the text. Last week we studied verses 1 through 7, and we'll not go through that again. Verses 1 through 7 tells us, here's why, Solomon said, here's why I'm writing the Proverbs. And it is to help you, whether you're young, whether you're old, whether you're foolish, whether you are a wise individual. It's to help you to get more understanding and comprehension so that you can make better judgments in life. So now, as we start in verse 8, we're going to be talking now about wisdom. He introduces that in verse 7, but now, in these next 9 chapters, we're going to be talking about wisdom. He just over and over and over again, he's going to tell us about wisdom. So now, before we get started, let me tell you something about his approach. We have defined wisdom as having that ability to be able to see the end of a thing from the very beginning. As you get into a project or a situation in life, if you can look on down and see the end and you say, if I do this, here's what will happen. If I do this, here's what will happen. And if you can see that clearly, then you have wisdom. Now, what he's going to do in Proverbs is look at wisdom as though it is an individual, as though it is a human being, as though wisdom is a living creature and can talk to you. And so, as we're studying in here in these verses, when it says something, like in verse 8, my son, now you'd probably start, as you look at it there, and you say, well, I know what that means. That means the father's talking to a son. And that's right, but it's not a human. It's wisdom, as we will see as we go through. Everything in here is wisdom talking to you. So if we could put wisdom into a human body and let wisdom talk to us and tell us what we ought to do, that's what he's doing in these first 9 chapters of the Proverbs. So when he says, my son, It's as though wisdom is a live individual, and wisdom is talking to you, and you are the son of wisdom. So now here's what he says. My son, hear the instruction of your father, and do not forsake the law of your mother. For they will give you a graceful ornament on your head and chains about your neck. Now, the first thing that wisdom says, if you could call in wisdom and say, Mr. Wisdom or Mrs. Wisdom, would you instruct us? Would you take this young person and give them some instruction so that they will grow up full of wisdom? Then wisdom says, okay, the first thing that I'm going to tell you is this. I want you to hear, that's comprehend, listen to, understand the instruction of your father. And don't forsake the law of your mother. So listen to mom and dad. That's your first thing. If you want to grow up as a human full of wisdom, you start out listening to mom and dad. Because mom and dad are going to be the two people in this life that has more concern for you than anybody else. And they're going to give you all of the wisdom and guidance that they have. Now, we've all seen it where a mom and a dad can be horrible individuals. They can be immoral, they can have all kind of bad habits, but they will always try to teach their children, don't do this, don't do this, and don't do what I'm doing. Now you might say, well, yeah, but a young man will do what they're doing rather than what they say. I know all of that. All of that is beside the point. Here's the point I'm getting at. If you have a drunken dad, an adulterous mom, if you have a problem, you can go to them and say, here's a problem I've got. What do you think I should do? And they're going to give you some pretty good advice. Now, the advice may be, don't do as I do. Is that good advice? So here's a dad who is smoking. My dad was a heavy smoker. And he constantly told me, son, don't smoke. Don't smoke. Now, if I'd have listened to him, would I have taken wise advice? But me being smart like I've always been, why, no way am I going to listen to him. I'm going to do it myself. I'm going to become mature, growing up, and the way you did that back in my day was start smoking. And so I started. I rejected the instruction of my father. But the whole point is this. Even though he did this, he smoked and he drank. Now, even though he did that, he preached to us kids, don't you do it. So what wisdom is saying is merely this, that as you start out, the two people that you can depend on to give you the best advice that they have is your mom and dad. So you listen to it. And you do that, it will adorn you like somebody that's adorned with graceful ornaments on their head and a chain about their neck. As you see some young person adorned in that way, it impresses you that they're dignified, that they know what they're doing, and it will cause other people to look at you as a very intelligent person. Then he says, my son. Now this is wisdom. Wisdom is saying, now my son, so now start to think, and again he's talking here especially to a young person. Now if sinners entice you, do not consent. Now there's what he's going to be talking about. If you are enticed by sinners, don't you consent. Now I might stop right here and ask you this. As a young person grows up, let's take a 14-year-old boy. As that 14-year-old boy grows up into adulthood, how many of them will be enticed by sinners? How many of them are going to be enticed by sinners? Every last one of them 100% are going to be enticed by sinners. So he says, now, I'm going to give you the advice. When you're enticed by sinners, don't listen. That's the instruction. Don't pay any attention to them. Who should you pay attention to? Mom and Dad. Don't pay attention to sinners. Now, he's going to describe this. He's going to describe the life here and things that you're going to hear. He said, if they say, come with us, let us lie in wait to innocent blood. Let us lurk secretly for the innocent without cause. Let us swallow them alive like Sheol, and whole like those that go down to the pit. And we shall find all kind of precious possessions, and we shall fill our houses with spoil. So they come to you and they say, follow us. We know what we're doing. We're going out and we're going to take advantage of the dumb, stupid society. We're going to go out and we will engage ourselves in any and all kind of immoral activity, but it'll be gain to us. That's how we'll get a lot of gain. Now, when you stop to think about this, I realize that old people rob banks and tell lies and do this. But as you look at the prisons, or as you look at the bank robbers, or as you look at the people that break into your house, if you hear in the morning that somebody broke into the house next door, how old do you think they'd probably be? Could you give a guess? How many of them over 80 would you say? Hold up your hand, see? So, no. Well, you start backing it down, and they're going to be young people that hasn't made their wealth yet, isn't it? And the way they're going to get it is fast. They're not going to work for it. That comes hard, and that comes slow. So let's go out and let's take advantage of other people. And we will grab them, and we will overcome them. We will absolutely overcome them as though we're taking them down to Sheol in their very death. And we'll find all kind of precious possessions. So you stick with us for a year, and you're going to be a wealthy man. We're going to have a lot of wealth. Then he says in verse 14, cast in your lot, they'll say, cast in your lot among us. Let us all have one purse. Now these people are going to say, come with us. We're going to take you in as equal partners. We, even though you might not have run around with us for a long time like these other guys, we'll take you in as equal partners. So come with us. They're going to try to build you up, young man. They're going to try to enhance your ego. They're going to try to make you feel important. They're going to try to make you see you can get wealthy fast, and you can be an important individual, and you'll just be an equal, one of us. Now, what is his advice in verse 15? See, whatever the offer is, when people offer you something to get involved in sin in any way, he says, my son. Now again, who is this? Wisdom speaking. My son, do not walk in the way with them. Keep your foot from their path, for their feet run to evil, and they make haste to shed blood. So don't go with them. Their path is going to be an evil path. And then he says, surely in vain the net is spread in the sight of any bird. So I say, now, son, young man, let me tell you this. Run from them. Don't get involved with them. And he said, it's just like birds. Now, if I want to go out and catch a bird, I've got to go out and set a snare, or got to go out and set a trap. Now, what is the one thing about that trap that I have to do in order to catch that bird? I have to camouflage it, don't I? I have to keep the birds from seeing it. When the birds see my trap that I've got, they're not going to go into it. Even a dumb bird is not going to go into that. I suppose all of us as kids have tried to catch a bird. I've tried to catch 100 of them, I guess. Never caught a one in my life. Because the bird can come up to my trap, look, smell, whatever they do, fly away. They can see the trap. Now, if you can see the trap, even a bird will not jump into it. So, son, let me tell you what the trap is. Let me tell you, when you go out and other people entice you to follow them, to do evil, any kind of sin, and it will enhance you, and it'll make you important, be as smart as a bird. Don't jump into that thing, see? Run away from it. So he uses that as an illustration. But these people, lie in wait for their own blood. They lurk secretly for their own lives. Now, why would somebody lie in wait for their own blood? So let's go back up and let's look here. Proverbs, sometimes you have to really stop and think. You say, what does he mean by this? Because now, here we have these evil guys. They're going to go out and they're going to steal purses. They're going to rob people. Now, who is it that they're trying to rob? It's the other person, isn't it? Are they trying to hurt themselves? No, they're not trying to hurt themselves. Okay, so now then they go out. They're set on robbing other people. And a lot of times they'll pull out a gun and shoot this person. They'll kill this person. We want the wealth. Now, in reality, young man, they are lying in wait for themselves. They are lying in wait, or they are taking a path that will destroy them. When that guy pulls that trigger and becomes a murderer, what happens to him for the rest of his life? It's ruined. And when he's caught, he's put in prison. Why is he put in prison? For what he was doing. Now, the point is this. Well, here's the way we would put it. We wouldn't put it the way he did. We would just say he's getting what he asked for. And we all understand it, don't we? Why is this kid going to prison? You see? Well, he's just getting what he asked for. No, what he asked for, he asked this woman for her purse. He tried to snatch it, and she did this or that, and so he shot her. And he didn't ask to go to prison. Yeah, he's getting what he asked for. We all understand what that means. So, young man, as you go out and you get involved with sinners, just keep in mind, you're acting dumber than a bird, and you're going to get what you ask for when you start doing such things as that. You look at bank robbers, and you got to shake your head, because how many bank robbers get caught? Now, there are some that get away, but how many of them get caught? Most of them, don't they? And they get caught within 2 or 3 blocks of the bank a lot of times. Sometimes it's 6 o'clock that night before they get caught. So here it is, they have $100,000, and they don't get caught all afternoon. Boy, you say, wow, you see that's there. So, but they get caught. Now, what would you say if I came to you and told you that I have a real good scheme, and I know how we can knock off a bank, and I promise you we will not get caught. You follow me. You do what I'm telling you to do, and we're not going to get caught. We can knock off Monroe today. We can go to Snohomish tomorrow, and we'll knock off 14, 15 of these banks, and we'll be rich. What would you say to me? See? You're going to say, Lowell, you're just asking for trouble. No, I'm not asking for trouble. I'm asking for money. See? Well, that's what this is saying about. It said they're lying in wait for their own life. When you start to go into the bank robbing business, you are just lying in wait for a prison term. So, son, my son, if you want to be a man of wisdom, don't follow these kind of people, is what he's saying. 19, he summarized it. So are the ways of everyone who is greedy for gain. It takes away the life of its owner. Now there's the key. Greedy for gain. I don't know how many times the Bible deals with this particular subject, greedy for gain. And if I were to ask you, do you have any greed in your body? Or since all of us are mature and we don't now, I could say, have you ever had any greed in your body? So now, we're dealing with something that kind of comes along with human nature, don't we? See, that we have. That's what all these schemes are built upon, is greed. Now, he said, if you have greed for gain, then what you're doing is you're taking away your own life. That's what it does. This greed will kill you. This greed will cause you to come to an end in some way or another. If it's breaking the law, you're going to end up in jail. If it causes you to kill somebody, you're going to get paid with your own life. If it causes you to go into business and borrow money that you can't pay back and get caught there, it's going to cause you to lose your house and a life of misery. Greed is a terrible thing. And so he said, that's what lies behind this whole thing. So now, if you'd back up, and we're going to take this young man and give him a bit of advice. Now, son, now this is wisdom talking. Son, here's what I want you to know. That's a 12-year-old, 14, 16, 18, 20, doesn't make any difference what it is. Here's what I want you to know. As you go through life, don't get involved with sinners. Now, the thing that will get you involved is your greed, is wanting to make money fast rather than having to work for it and make it the way it's supposed to be. Don't get involved in any kind of a scheme that is built upon greed, because what will happen is it's going to ruin your life. So that's the first point that Mr. or Mrs. Wisdom would give to a young person. Now, the second point is in verse 20. And this is where you say, okay, I want to have wisdom. But how do I get it? Where can I get wisdom? Well, first of all, where we've learned the first place that you start, where is it? Mom and Dad. That's the first place you start. Then you go out and he said, here's where you find wisdom. It's not as though it's hid. It's not as though it's out here somewhere that nobody knows where it is and you just happen to run across it. He says, wisdom calls aloud outside. If you want wisdom, walk out the building. And here's the way it comes. If you go outside the building, out here is wisdom, and wisdom is calling, hey, listen to me. Hey, listen to me. I'm wisdom. I'm wisdom. If you go that way, wisdom is calling. If you go this way, wisdom is calling. In other words, wisdom is calling you everywhere around, is what it's saying. Wisdom is everywhere. You can learn wisdom everywhere. She raises her voice in the open squares. If you go down to the open squares are the open markets, like Pike Place markets, and that's the kind of markets that they had. Out in the open squares, you go down there, you can learn wisdom. Let me ask you a question. If you go to the Pike Place market tomorrow, can you glean wisdom? Can you glean wisdom? Now, you go down there, you say, well, we're going to go down, take some visitors down there, and it's going to be for fun. Yeah, okay, but if you go down there, can you go down there and say, now I'm going to go down, I'll be a wiser man when I came back than I was when I went? Can you glean wisdom down there? Well, you bet your life you can. Are you going to run across any people down there that's going to try to take advantage of you? Why, sure you are. And so you go down and you look and you watch how people operate. And you're going to come back a smarter man than when you went down. In fact, here's what I'd like to see us do. As you experience life, I don't care what it is, whether you're going through the Boeing plant or whether you go to Pike Place or whether you go to the fair I don't care where it is, you go. When you go, I want you to think about, when I come back, I will have had fun. I plan on having some fun. But I'm going to be a wiser individual. I'm going to look and I'm going to see, what can I learn here? What can I learn? Can you learn anything by going to the Puyallup Fair or the Monroe Fair? As you go through there, you hear these guys out there hawking these things and saying this and saying that, and people line up to buy everything that they can. Can you get any wisdom from that? Have you ever learned from that? You take a food grinder or something of this nature, and you look at it, and you can't live without it, can you? You see what that guy does, and he can make a salad in 12 seconds. Just absolutely wonderful, you see, in every way. Well, you can't live without it. So you buy it. So you pay $5 or $50, and you bring it home, and you go in to make your salad. What happens? It takes longer than 16 seconds. This is not the way it happened up there. What? In here. Now, are you getting any wisdom? See? Are you learning anything? Yeah. See, you have to learn some things. Will that help you maybe when the next guy knocks on your door and offers you a financial bargain that you can't pass up? See? Can you have a little more wisdom? That's what this is saying. You get wisdom everywhere. She cries out in the chief concourses, in the openings of the gate of the city. You go down, he said, to the crossroads. That's a chief concourse. Go down to the crossroads in the city, and wisdom. You'll learn wisdom. Go to the gates of the city. That's down in where you enter into the city and where the elders would sit and hold court. You can get wisdom there. In other words, he's saying everywhere you go, you can get wisdom. She speaks her words. How long, you simple ones, will you love simplicity? For scorners delight in their scorning, and fools hate knowledge. So now there's three groups of people, he says, that you can be if you're not a wise individual. Number one, simple ones. These are the uninitiated. These are the people that just don't know. How easy is it for a person that doesn't know, hadn't had experiences of life, to be caught making bad decisions? Real easy. Then the mockers, or the scorners. Scorner means a mocker. It's somebody who repeats something that's here. And it's kind of like Raleigh here. I tell him, Raleigh, don't go up this way because they're working on the road up there and you may slide off in the ditch. And Raleigh said, I'm not going to slide off in the ditch, so I'm going to go up there. Okay, he goes up there, he slides off in the ditch. I come along. What am I going to say? Hey, you're not going to slide off in the ditch, are you, Raleigh? Hey, Raleigh, you going to slide off in the ditch? Yeah. Raleigh, can you slide off in the ditch? What am I doing? That's what I'm doing. Now, what would you call me? When I laugh at people, and you see, I don't make those mistakes, right? I don't make those mistakes, and I laugh at you people, common ordinary people who do make those mistakes. What kind of guy am I? See? Well, I'm a scorner. I'm somebody who thinks he knows it. That's what it is. Somebody who thinks he knows it. It is a word that's used for people who make derision against all kind of religion. So now we got a person who doesn't know it. He's the simple one. And here's a guy like me who is a know-it-all and thinks he knows it. And then the next one is the fool. And the fool is a person who has become set in his ways. The fool is the one that he has looked at life and he says, I know what it's all about and I'm not about to listen to it. And you can talk to him about God, and not going to listen because he knows. He knows. See? Now, fool is a person that thinks he has all of this knowledge, but he doesn't, but he won't listen. So you got these three kind of people here. You got the young, uninitiated. You've got the know-it-all who won't listen, and you've got the guy that's set in his ways that you're not about to teach him anything. So he said, turn at my rebuke. So turn when I rebuke you. That is, when you get in trouble, stop and think and say, boy, and so turn. Surely I will pour out my spirit on you, and I will make my words known to you, because I have called you, I have called and you refused. I have stretched out my hand and no one regarded, because you disdained all of my counsel. So what he's saying is, wisdom is saying, I've tried, but you won't listen. I've tried giving you my spirit. I've tried giving you my understanding. I've tried, now this is wisdom talking again. I've tried to let you know what I know, but the problem is you won't listen. It's not that wisdom isn't available. It's not that you can't find it, but it's you won't listen because you're too ignorant, you're too haughty, or you are just a plain know-it-all. So you won't do that. So wisdom says, I've stretched out my hands in here because you disdained all my counsel. I would have none of my rebuke. So you won't listen to me. Now here's what wisdom says. It says, and when your terror comes, or 26, I also will laugh at your calamity. I will mock when your terror comes. When your terror comes like a storm and your destruction comes like a whirlwind, when distress and anguish come upon you. So you won't listen. I've tried to tell you. I've tried to tell you. I've tried to tell you. But you're a know-it-all. You won't listen. Now when destruction comes and you lose your life, or you lose your business, or you lose your money, or you lose, in other words, when destruction comes because of your foolish actions, and you cry out, oh, poor me, help me, wisdom says, then I will laugh. We might wish wisdom would step in. Once I've lost everything I've got, I'm sitting there with my head in my knees, and boy, I wish I hadn't have done that. Boy, I wish wisdom would come and fill my head so that I hadn't have done that. It's too late, isn't it? See, it's too late. See, so this is where wisdom is saying, then it's too late. Then I'll just laugh at you. That's the only thing. So wisdom says you've got two choices. I'm crying out to tell you, and you can find me anywhere at any time. But if you won't cry out, then you're going to lose it, and then I'll laugh at you. On the one hand, I want to give you wisdom. On the other hand, if you refuse it and get in trouble, then I'll laugh at you. So he goes ahead, and he said, then they will call on me, but I will not answer. Then they will seek me diligently and not find me, because they hated knowledge and did not choose the fear of the Lord. They would have none of my counsel and despise my every rebuke. Therefore they shall eat the fruit of their own way. That is, you're going to reap what you sow, since you won't listen to wisdom, and be filled to the full with their own fantasies. For the turning away of the simple will slay them, and the complacency of the fool will destroy them. But whoever listens to me will dwell safely and will be secure without fear of evil. So his whole point is that you have your choice. You listen to wisdom now, and then you'll dwell safely. If you don't, you're going to reap what you sow, and then you're going to pay for it, and then there's no way to get you out of it. Okay, class dismissed.